Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video, and today I have this new to me John boat. It's had 4 previous owners, and of course that comes with some messed up wiring over the years. So I want to go through today how I diagnose the wiring, some of the problems that I have found with it, and how we're going to fix the wiring and resolve it. When I first bought the boat, I had all this wiring and I had no idea what anything went to. There's no labeling on the wiring itself or the switches. Not a big deal at all. Just means I'd go through everything regardless because I want to know what switches go to what switches are working, etc. Well, come to find out there are a couple of issues as mentioned, but as far as diagnosing those issues, it's relatively simple. I'll show you real quick. Now there were some things that went to this panel right here that has 4 switches total, one of them popped out right now, and some of the other things just went direct to battery. Anything direct to battery, simply turn it on, see if it worked, and then made sure the wiring actually did go back to the battery. So I went through all the wiring, and if that was faulty, then I tested the equipment, which means if there was an extended wire or anything like that I had some issues with, I just took whatever's connected to, hooked it direct to the battery, took the extension out, and if it worked, then obviously that extension of wire is faulty, something of that nature, and it needs to be replaced. But when it came to the switch panel and whatnot, you have some more issues. Since I had no idea what any of this went to, I had no idea to know what I was testing to begin with. So I had to pull the entire thing off, and not a big deal. And one of the best tools to diagnose if you're getting power or not is going to be this little 12-volt light. Got a little alligator clamp there, you put that on your negative, and that probe right there, you just stick on any of your terminals that should be getting power, and that's how you can test if indeed it is. Before starting this mini-series, I've already gone and done a lot of diagnosis, but here we are once again. I'll explain basically steps I've taken. So you have your main wire coming out of basically your switchboard, your control panel for the boat, and this main wire, it's got a brown negative and a red positive, and that feeds into the back of the switch panel. And all you're doing, it's just like plumbing or anything else, follow your wires in. So if I follow this brown one in, I see that's going to go right here, and that's actually going to be my ground. Now, you do have to worry about electrolysis. However, this is fiberglass, and there's so little power actually running through this. I'm not very concerned with electrolysis, especially since this isn't going to be sitting in water full time. If it were, you want all these terminals to go back to your battery. Just a little caveat. Anywho, but what we have here is the red wire is coming down to this switch initially, and that is going to be our master switch. And no, it is not wired well. That's why I'm going to redo these terminals. It's one of the problems I found. But I should be getting power to that switch, and indeed I am. Hopefully you can see that light come on. So that's something I got power to that switch. I shouldn't have power to this one with the switch off. Indeed I don't. When I turn the switch on, I should have power to it. So we hit it, yep, there's power going to that switch. When we see this brown wire coming up here goes to this terminal, which means this one's getting power. And that's going to be for anything that is on the master switch, should automatically come on basically, even with this switch off for the other 2 positions. So now we've diagnosed that, we're basically going to go on to the rest of our switches. Now you're just going to have to play around, flicker switches on and off, follow the wiring to see what it actually goes to. In this case, we have a 3-position switch. So that 2-position switch like this one, you're basically going to have 2 sets of prongs, possibly 3 for the ground. Whereas this one, you have several different positions for negatives and positives. However, negatives are all routed over here. We won't get into all that. But what I want to find out is which of these prongs is active in which position. So right now it's in the center position. So I should have power coming in, as mentioned, to this one. And I do. And now I'm going to check all of these, and all I'm doing is just probing them, and I shouldn't have power to anything else. Now I want to flip the switch down, and that ought to activate one of these prongs. And we'll see if it does. And it does. So this top one, it's not in use, but that has power when it's in the down position. So that's also how you can diagnose which terminals you need to have based on the switch position. If I flick it up, and the bilge pump is connected to this, 1, you can hear it, so it's obviously getting power, but 2, if you want to see if your switch was bad or if your wiring is bad, you can probe that with the switch on, and you can see that's getting power. So that's basically how you diagnose it. That's kind of the whole process I went through with this entire thing. Long story short, this switch is dead. This right here is actually for the stern light that is active. This switch is working properly. It's a 2-position switch, which does the bow and stern lights. This is the bill punch switch, and that is the master switch. Now, I could pull this one out, but I'm not going to, because now if I ever wanted to, I have a dead switch here. I can add anything I really wanted to in the future, whether that be lights, small running lights for inside the boat, like LED strips. I already have that available. It's not something I have to go out and get. It's not hurting anything, so I'm just going to leave it in for the time being. As mentioned, we already seen the first problem. That's going to be this bare copper just being screwed in. That's unacceptable. We're going to put some proper terminals on there, and then we're going to re-screw them in. That way they're nice and secure. The other thing I did off camera is I went through here. I made sure the screws were tight to all the other terminals. If there's something loose, tighten it up. If there was a terminal loose, I basically do the same exact thing I'm about to show you, which is just cut it, pull it back a little bit, and add a new waterproof terminal on. Probably goes without saying, go ahead, disconnect your battery, make sure this entire system's dead. Another way we can verify that, let's put that alligator clip back on, check the master power, no light, we are good right there. All right, so all we gotta do is, these are little Phillips head screws. A little stubby screwdriver comes in handy here. We just need to back those out. We're actually going to go ahead and back them out all the way because we want to see what terminals we want to use to this, get a good connection. So we got that. Let's pop that out, make sure you don't lose it. And while we're here, go ahead and get our negative out as well. The other thing we're going to look for is corrosion on the wire. This is not marine grade wire. Generally, I would say replace it with marine grade wire. I don't have any with me, so I'm just going to go with this copper stuff until it falls out. In addition, this is going to be used mainly in freshwater and in rare circumstances. It's not going to be used basically every weekend. It's just going to be on occasion. So we can actually see, look at that wire. Oh my goodness. All of this right here isn't even attached. So that's why you do not screw in your wire, because it does that, and you have way more resistance than just a few coils of copper. So we're going to have to pinch that back a little bit. Let's take a look at this red power wire. Take a look there. This is a pretty thick wire. And that's actually all attached, so we're going to get lucky with that. I'm going to go ahead and spin it back up. But this one, we will definitely have to cut back. Get some better quality on there. So, looking at it a little bit closer, this is actually closer to 16 to 14 gauge. We got our crimping tool. We just slid this down on that bare wire, make our best to make sure we don't get insulation. Put our crimping tool on. We're just going to crimp that down. And that should be good and crimped. Do a pull test. And that's in place. Now these are marine connectors, so this part will actually melt. So I have a heat gun here. We're just going to heat this end until we get that nice and melted and get a nice watertight connection. And just like that, it is melted and on there. We'll let that cool for a second. We'll do another pull test. That should be watertight and ready to go. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. We'll then plug the battery back in as well. Let's make sure we got power. And we do. So we're good to go there. That's getting power. And that terminal is done. Now we're just going to do the same exact thing to this brown terminal. Off camera, all I did was the same exact thing I did to this wire. I just melted it down, crimped it, stripped it, all that good stuff. And now I'm just testing to make sure everything works. So we'll go ahead and put that switch back in. This should have power. It does. This one should not. It doesn't. Switch goes out. And we got power. So that connection's good. Let's verify we didn't damage this wire in any way during that process. So going to this terminal where this brown wire leads, it should be live now. And it is. So we're good to go. That is fixed. That was the main thing on this panel. Now it's just going to be labeling everything. We're We're going to go ahead and test everything on this panel real quick, other than the stern light, just because it's too cumbersome to try to hold single-handed while filming. Anywho, so master power is off. That means we shouldn't get anything. We are not on the bilge pump. We are not at the front light. So let's go ahead, pop that on. When we push this down, should it be the bilge? Or maybe up. Yep. So up is bilge. Down, there's nothing connected. As mentioned, this is a dead switch. Nothing's connected to it. And this is out in the second position. This is the three-way switch as well. So in this position, it's off. If I can pull it out in that position, it would just be the stern light. And in this position, it'll be the bow and stern light. Let's go take a look real quick. And yep, that bow light is working fine. What do you think, Alf? Yeah, he approves. So we're good there. Switch panel is done. That is all wired back up. All I'm going to do now is, I got a label maker right here. This is a quick, easy step, but it's great. Honestly, just to go ahead and do it. Have a label maker, go ahead and label your switches, especially on something like this, and that way you'll know where it is. If somebody new owns the boat, they'll know where it is, a friend or anything like that. You ask them to turn anything on, just makes things a whole lot simpler. Yeah, it may look a little bit of a mess with these particular labels. I've had this machine around for a while, and this still does the job for what I need it to. It's going to be hidden anyway. So, dead, off, bilge up there. Master, it's only two position switch, so I didn't go with the positions. P1 off, P2 stern, P3 bow and stern, but just keeping it simple. And as mentioned, this one's completely dead. Nothing going to it, but you could add something to it if you wanted to. Again, some string LED lights for this back compartment or something at night. That would be a nice touch to add in the future if wanted. But we're going to go ahead and screw this back in. We're going to try to remove some of this caulk as well and re-caulk it and do a little bit nicer job around the edges. And the rear portion will be done. Then it'll just be the Garmin system we got to do, as well as a wire going from the stern to the bow to charge the bow battery with this bank charger. The other problem I had was when I was testing the bank charger, I was having issues and I was getting a fault on the front battery on the first bank charger. Well, these connectors are shot and this is not marine grade wire. It's corroded, it's a mess. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take all this out, and while you could make your own wire, I just didn't have any, so I went ahead and just bought this kit on Amazon, real easy. Everything was already spliced in, didn't have to worry about it. It's got inline fuses, so I'm just going to take this side, tape it to that side, pull it all the way through the boat, and we'll have a new wire in place to charge this bow battery. With all this portion done, I would say I'm probably 75% of the way there, but got the battery hooked up with this extension cable going to the back to the charger. It's off right now, so trolling motor should be dead. It is. And when I flip that switch on, this should kick on. So yeah, that's all working just fine. All I gotta do is wait for some wire for the back of the boat. Now this sonar system was going to that dead switch in the back. Frankly, that was a cluster. I didn't see a reason for this to be on a switch. So I'm going to redo the wiring, go direct to battery. It had these connectors on there and they were plugged in together. Then I went to the switch, then to the battery. It was an absolute mess. So first I had to take all the wiring out, see how it was done initially. I removed those terminal ends to that dead switch if I want to add anything else. And then I spliced these wires on the back because it was just a mess of solder. I have them connected to the battery, need to verify it works. And it is turning on. Make sure transducer works real quick, just going traditional, and that seems to be working fine. Obviously, temperature seems to be pretty accurate, voltage seems right, so good to go there. All right, so what I'm going to do is the end of this power cable is only 4 feet long, not enough to go to the back. I'm going to splice it into some more wire, run that directly to the battery. That's just going to make this a lot easier on this simple boat. Now, one of the things you got to be careful about here is actually pulling those wires apart. This is already a tight space and it is full of styrofoam. You're going around a 90-degree corner. Well, unfortunately, this is what happened to me. When I tried to zip tie these cords together instead of using electric tape, just trying to be a little bit quicker about it, I ended up pulling those wires apart, and this job, which I thought was only going to take me about 10-15 minutes to do, turned into an hour and a half ordeal in order to run new wire. But this is a great time to show you how you can run new wire if you run into this issue. I had to run to the store and grab one of these fish tapes to fish this wire through. Took this rod holder out, went through the back of here. See that wire? It's now in. That took about an hour and a half, but now I've gotten to the point I got my street wrap on about twice the size of the wire that it's going on. I went ahead and stripped these two back, strip back the fish finder, and we ought to be set. All I got to do is put some more butt connectors and we'll be done. Heat shrink it, terminals, that's it. Let that cool for a second. Make sure we don't pull that butt connector apart. That tends to be where you go wrong with these things. And once you start to see a haze form, that's when you know that it ought to be cooled down. So we can go ahead and start on the next one. Tidy that joint up a little bit more. I'll see if it'll work though. If the power's on, we're good to go ahead and add terminals and put everything back together. Got that in. All right, cool. So we're set. I can add some terminal ends to the battery. I got set up right there. And it's just putting everything back and cleaning out the boat. Just need to line. Twist that copper together, get it lined up with a little connector in there. Yep, making sure that PVC is not in the way, the insulator. All right. Let that cool for a second, reset, test it on the battery one more time, and we're good to go. All right, we're set. Well, finally, wiring's done. Let's put everything back. So we're going to go over everything real quick that I did use. I had to get some 20 gauge wire. Once again, don't recommend this stereo wire. Get some marine grade. It's just what I could find within 45 minutes of where I live. A little torch, if you have some solder that won't melt, just very light burst will help. We got some butt connectors. Those are solder connects. These wire terminals that are also heat shrink. I found those to be pretty handy. Those were effective as well. And then the stool wall, just heat shrink tubing. A couple other things for diagnosing. This little 12 volt light, they're a couple dollars and worth every single penny for trailer lights or anything like that. Got wire cutter and crimper. This is the absolute most basic tool, but it does work. I went ahead and picked up a couple more, like this fish tape. If I didn't have to pull wires through, if I already had wires in place, connected and pulled them through, then you could do it that way. Unfortunately, one of them did break through, so getting one of these fish tapes was super handy for fishing a new wire in. Got a pair of wire strippers. This makes the job a heck of a lot faster, and some crimps, which just make sure you get a solid crimp compared to that cheaper set. Other than a few small things, I got all the wiring put away in the bow. I got everything relined in the front. Just use some clips to make things a little bit easier, especially for this little Garmin system and things of that nature. In the back here, tried to keep it as neat as I could. Got everything tied up over there. Went along the rear. Use those clips again to go around to the battery box. First thing we'll check is the bank charger. Make sure that's working. I prefer to only run one cable because I think I only have 1 or 2 outlets. And there we go. Both batteries are charging, so we're good there. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and test the Garmin fish finder. That's kicked on. Transducer is working. Temperature seems right. Awesome. All right. Battery switch is off. We try to use the trolling motor. Nothing. Turn that battery switch on. We got power there. And then we have this fish finder. Got a switch underneath the trolling motor for that. That seems to have turned on. And that's working as well. All right. Now we're going to go back and test the switch panel on the back of the boat. I have to hold that down longer. Finally, we got the switch panel. Nothing should turn on as of now, but if I pull that master switch out, and I will pull this battery up a little bit to have better access, build should kick on now. And that does. You may be able to hear it. All right. And then lights. This should be the stern one in that first position. It's on. And if I pull it all the way out, we should have bow lights as well. We did not. Let's check on that last thing real quick. It just wasn't pushed in all the way. So, but that's working. So all the electronics are good on the boat. That's all done. Everything's stitched up for right now. Oh, and last thing, I did need to check this. Make sure this engine will pop over. Yep. All right. Everything on the boat electronically works now. So that project is done. Now keep in mind, if this was a brand new boat, obviously new wiring, I'd have a bus bar in the back, probably a fuse panel. I'd redo it all together in a completely different way. This boat already had the wiring in it. Whatever looked good, I kept, and I'll only fix the damaged stuff or things that weren't working. That was kind of the whole point. This is a used boat. I got it for a pretty good deal. I'm not trying to throw a lot of money. I just want to get everything working that's already on it, make it sure it's working safely, and it's got fuses in place. That's why I see a lot of inline fuses instead of newer boats where you may have terminal buses and all that. Try to keep it simple, try to keep it inexpensive. That's kind of the whole point of what I did rewiring this boat versus a new one. But guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, a little bit all over the place. But if you did, please make sure to share, like, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.